Sorry, in that time we had a baby. So we're pretty stoked about that. Just getting reused to having a baby in the house and changing diapers and sleepless nights. So fun, so fun. And if my lip looks funny, it's just went to the dentist. So you know how they like to numb you up. But I want to talk to you about three things. And sometimes they're talked about separately. Like for example, you might go to therapy to deal with fear. Or you might go to therapy to deal with feeling like a failure. And everything that we experience, everything always needs a body, okay? Every single idea needs a body for it to be real, okay? Every story needs a character, and every character needs a story. Now, what am I talking about? Let's unpack this, because one of the things that I see most of, and it doesn't matter who you follow, it doesn't matter if it's Joseph Ally, Sammy Ingram, it doesn't really matter who the people are, including myself. One of the things that I've seen, and if you were to do the statistical breakdown, that people really fear failure. And so a lot of fellow coaches, fellow YouTubers who are creating content like this, they have a load of videos on what to do with failure. Why though? Why is that? Well, failure to us feels like a threat. When I say that, I'm talking about evolution. And I'm talking about how our mind works in relationship to threat. Okay, so we have to understand that a manifestation failure is something that needs a story, that needs a character, that needs a body. And I'm going to explain all of that, okay? But we have to understand why failure feels so painful, okay? Because even, for example, disgust feels like somebody punched you in the face, all right? And that's actually according to neuroscientific research. Failure feels like a form of death. Right. And so this is according to research. All right. So that when you fail, you feel like a part of you is dying. By the way, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we're going to talk about that. Okay. So when you are exploring what it means to manifest and then what it means to fail, you have to then see these as two separate things. Meaning you can't just say, because I manifest, I fail. Right. It's like that whole Descartes thing, right? I think, therefore I am. You can't create what I call correlative ideas. You can't say, because there's manifestation, then that means there's also a lack of manifestation. Okay? That is where you have to use Neville's idea of brazen impudence, which is really just saying that you're stubborn. You just nope, failure doesn't happen. Failure doesn't exist. But one of the things that I keep hearing and seeing and reading across Reddit and WhatsApp and private Facebook groups and, even within some of my own clients, there's this idea of, oh my gosh, failure is going to destroy everything. If I fail at this thing, it's going to hurt me. If I fail at this, I lose my desire. If I fail at this, right? So again, and you may have heard me say this before. Now, Neville uses the word love, where I'm going to use the word reframe. Okay, so reframe is a term that's used in the sciences, where I'm trained in, to say, okay, take one idea, usually negative ones, and you reframe it. You try to look at it positively rather than a negative. Okay, now, very interestingly, this is really piece of cool information here, okay, is that there's a biblical word that Neville uses, right? And it's very misunderstood, very dangerous to even understand it this way, which is the Christian way, but it's the word sin, okay? And that means everybody is crap. Everybody's full of shit. Literally, spiritually speaking, everybody's just shit, right? And that's awful. Everybody's valuable. Everybody, okay? And Neville even basically says this. He says, everybody, if you look at them, right, all you see is their divinity. You don't respond to their state. Everybody's in a state, whether they're a thief, they're a murderer, it doesn't matter. Now, it doesn't mean that you have ethics. It doesn't mean that you don't, necessarily separate yourself from those things, right? Because you're always operating from the golden rule. But at the same time, the reason why I'm bringing this up in connection to failure is because you need to stop looking at failure as something that slows you down. Okay, you need to stop looking at failure as something that stops your manifestations. And so how can you do that? Well, again, reframing means I'm looking at failure and we're going to go into that little Jewish origin of the idea of sin, which I think is very powerful for this conversation about reframing, because it's extremely valuable. So the ancient Jews understood sin very differently. Okay, so it's not from Origen of Alexandria. That's a church person, right? It's not from the Catholic Church. The idea of sin is a very Jewish and ancient idea. And the basic idea, yes, you could take it from the Greek, which means missing the mark. You know, if you take it deeper from the Hebrew, there's a gap. But it's not, none of it in the Hebrew has anything to do with who you are. Right? It's literally what is going on about what you're experiencing. So if you may know this, and if you follow me, you will, that the Hebrews wrote in pictorial meaning. Okay? Pictorial meaning really means that they used images. So when you think of words, for example, which actually works with neuroscience, which shows that every time you hear a word, you actually see an image in your mind. You may not see it visibly, but that's how your brain operates. Right? And so when you hear a word, your brain forms an image, okay? It's very, very important, because that's the way that the Hebrews wrote language and numbers. They wrote it with a picture in mind. So when they're talking about sin, or what we would call failure, right, it would be like somebody who's walking on a path, okay? And let's say you're just hiking, and life is the path, as a metaphor, right? And that life is a path, but as you're walking along, you trip, right? You're not paying attention for whatever reason. You're learning the path, okay? And you trip. Now, if you ever need to come back that way, would you ever trip? Most likely not, okay? And so, why? Because you've learned. And that is how the ancient Jews understood sin. It's an opportunity for growth, right? It's not anything that's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you, right? And that's the problem, is that we believe things are wrong with us. And so we believe things like failure because it fits into a narrative or an identity that makes it reinforce the idea that we're somehow weak, that we're somehow stupid, that we're somehow powerless, that we're somehow not in control. Whatever it is, the idea of failure is something that actually helps reinforce the idea of you not being powerful. This is why you need to get rid of the idea of failure, okay? There's no such thing as manifestation failure. Not one bit at all. Just because it hasn't shown up doesn't mean you failed. It just means that right now, you're still continuing on the path. Neville talks about timing. I'm going to talk about that in a different one. Okay, I've already had 2 videos on timing, but I'm going to actually talk to you about what he means about timing, because he uses animals and humans, and well, this desire comes this way, and we're going to talk about all of that stuff, right? Because I think there's actually some misunderstanding with that. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you an idea of what's happening when something fails. Because remember, failure doesn't exist. So what that's really showing you is you have a belief about being a failure. You have a belief that somewhere in your childhood, whatever it is along the way, a fear, a memory, a series of memories, whatever it is, that you have a belief that you are a failure. Otherwise, if you didn't believe you were a failure and that you couldn't fail, why would you even think about manifestation failure? So really, the idea, the belief, the acceptance of something that manifesting and then it fails has nothing to do with the manifestation at all. It has everything to do with you, because remember, everything's about us, right? And we are only experiencing what is a mirror in response to what's going on inside, right? And so again, imagine there's like this internal mirror inside of you, not an actual physical one, that'd be painful, and then that's just mirroring your emotional inner world about how you see things, how you see the world, how you interact with your past, how you desire things for your future. Whatever it is, that's going to mirror, okay? So for example, you might hate traffic, okay? So then guess what's going to happen, right? You're going to experience traffic because you hate it. And you're going to think other people are dumb drivers. Guess what you're going to experience? Dumb drivers, right? And so it's one of those things where you have to take on board the realization that this thing called life, part of what we're doing here is learning to wake up to the fact that we're God. And the greatest way that we can do that is by manifesting. The more that you manifest, the more that you wake up to your divinity, according to Neville, right? And so you want to be manifesting. So then why would you want to focus all your time and energy on failure or manifestation failure? There isn't manifestation failure. It doesn't exist. Just because you don't have it doesn't mean it's not there. And remember, everything in your imagination is what? Everything's now. So out here, that there's just what we call a time gap, which again, I think is also a misunderstanding. It's just a process. It is just a process, okay? And that is all that's happening. And I'm taking that from quantum theory because most quantum theorists define time as process, as an unfoldment, right? That's all that's happening. There's nothing happening with you losing time. Both Joseph Murphy and Neville said, listen, one of the greatest things that you can ever do is do not believe, do not concede, do not accept to any loss whatsoever. Okay, because you're going to manifest more loss, obviously. So don't believe that, like, okay, because, hey, I manifested an acceptance letter for my college and either they turned me down or it passed the deadline. Okay, so what? Like, and I know it's hard, by the way. And the idea is, yes, go ahead and mourn, get frustrated, but then revise it. Revise it means you unlearn it. Okay. And so you unlearn what? You unlearn that deadlines can somehow be united with correlative ideas. Okay. And I want to talk about revision in a very deep dive one, because that's really the fundamental heart behind unlearning, or revision is unlearning. But what are you unlearning? So again, go back to this idea of this student who wants to get a acceptance letter and so on and so forth. All right. And they either missed a deadline or whatever. No, you didn't. There's no such thing as loss in here. So what that means is you're then going to create a scene where you did receive the acceptance letter, but not that. Maybe you got a full ride or whatever it is. You always go higher, meaning you always go better than what you even eventually desire. Neville says what? Admire manifest the best of the best, right? And so what that means is you take your current desire and you say, what would make this not just 10% better, but 200% better, right? So it's not like, hey, I want an acceptance letter from a college of my choice. I want a full ride. Or, hey, I want some sort of like, recognition for all of the work that I did in high school. Whatever it is, you always manifest the best of the best. You never settle. Okay, so I had heard this from another manifesting teacher called Regan Hillier, right? And she had said, and she's like a billionaire. And so basically she said, the major thing is that when you have $10 billion, you have a choice. Is that you can end up accept being a, $10 billion a month person, or you can say, well, I want more. Like, meaning, like, that's your ceiling. That's your ceiling of tolerance. That's what she called it. And so your ceiling of tolerance is what you're experiencing now. So what is your ceiling of tolerance? Like, or what are you willing to tolerate? Are you consistently trying to ask for more? And I don't mean ask for more, because that means assume more. Are you willing to assume more? Okay. Regan Hillier, ReganHillyer. Right? Check out her stuff from Mind Valley. Okay. And so again, and by the way, you're going to see me talk about other coaches, and you're going to see me talk about other manifestation teachers, because I don't like this idea. One of the things that it seems really weird to me is that if we believe that there's no such thing as lack, why aren't we all bigging each other up? Like, we should be bigging each other up and supporting each other. Right. And so again, back to this. So there is no such thing as failure. And I don't mean that just for manifestation. As somebody who studies human behavior for a living, and I've been in part of like research projects and so on and so forth, one of the things that trips people up is they identify as the failure. Remember at the beginning of this talk today, I said that failures need a body. What did I mean by that? Well, what I mean is failure is just a story. But what is a story? A story is with a character. And a story is a first-person narrative that you're experiencing because you're the one who's embodying it. So you need to give up that story of being a failure. Failure does not exist. Because if you can revise things, which means if you can unlearn them, then you've already learned the lesson that you would have learned even if you had failed. Are you with me? So you don't need to worry about failure. There's no such thing as manifestation failure. None. And there never will be. I don't care how many coaches talk about this. I don't care how many people in my field, which is behavioral science and neuroscience, talk about this. and neuroscience only proves one thing, that we are cultural containers. That means that we are influenced and impacted and defined by cultural environment. Okay. So if you grew up in an environment that said you can't fail, you shouldn't fail, you're a piece of crap if you do, that is nothing to do with failure showing up in the brain. And that any neuroscience that talks about that isn't proving that failure on the brain works. It's just showing that what a cultural value is and how it impacts the actual brain. Okay. Are you with me? And the reason why that's important is because people say, yeah, but look at this piece of research and look at that piece. Yeah, I'm in research. I get it. Right. But at the same time, the research doesn't prove anything. It only proves that there's a cultural value. That's the fucked upness of what is going on, right? That means there are people in your family, and there are people in your community, there are people in your church group, there are people in your personal friend group that believe that failure exists. So then they're going to experience it. So then that gives you an opportunity to make a choice. Do I believe in it enough that I need to experience it? Or no, I don't believe it. So then what that means is you need to get to the place where you are reframing it, right? And you are giving it a nickname and a different name. And I shared this, ironically, research before that showed that the more that you are willing to reframe, or what Neville calls love in his work, right, is the ability to look at things not just differently, but to give it a nickname that means something else entirely. So again, looking at a failure as, hey, you know what? That's going to end up happening. Hey, that's going to end up, right? That's going to end up, right, making me a better person, or whatever it is. There is a little positivity here. I'm not really big on positive thinking because I don't think it's the same as what Neville's talking about here, and is very different than, I think, also because Esther Hicks is almost borderline toxic positivity, and again, I think that's actually a misunderstanding as well. But most people read it that way, and I think it's actually very unhelpful. Okay. So yeah, so learning basketball, but the process is frustrating. So you actually just used the word right there. It's a great question, but basically call it process, call it learning, call it education, call it, hey, I'm on my path. Right? So this isn't something that is wrong with you, because remember, as I said before, failure needs a story, and the story needs a character. And the more that you play that character, the more that you're not only going to say that, oh, hey, that failed, or that didn't work. You're going to say, you're going to start using phrases like I failed, or I'm a failure, right? And that isn't true. And by the way, here's a little test to see if that's what you believe about yourself. After this live or whatever it is, sit there and actually start saying I'm a failure about 50 times. See what comes up, because I guarantee you most people struggle with this. That's what the research says, across anywhere and anything. And I'm not trying to get you to re-traumatize yourself, but I am trying to get you to be aware of the fact that you've already accepted many stories where you have not just accepted that something failed or didn't work, right? But that you ultimately embodied that failure, because now you start actually seeing yourself as that person, right? And even for example, as someone who does stand-up, right? There's a lot of self-deprecating humor. Right? That means you shit on yourself. That means you talk bad about yourself. You're always talking down to yourself. Okay? And so, just call it process. Call it learning. Call it education. Call it fun. Right? But never call it anything like failure, because failure is a form of loss. And what does Neville and Joseph Murphy and Abdullah say? Do not concede to loss. Don't give up. Do not. That's ultimately what that means when they both are saying don't give up on your beliefs, right? Because ultimately, in that verse where it says in your anger do not sin, okay, what it's really saying is no matter what emotion you have, because really the way that's written in the Greek, when Paul says in your anger, it would be in your fill in the blank. So what Paul is really saying is in your anger, in your happiness, in your joy, in your hopelessness, in your, right, what emotion it is that you're feeling, in those emotions, and in means within. So yes, you can feel those emotions. You can feel any emotion. But what he's saying is do not sin. What that means is don't give up. So let me say it a different way. I was thinking about this morning when I was getting ready for this live. It's what does that really mean? Is no matter how many emotions you experience throughout your life, never ever say that your desire is impossible. That's really ultimately what that verse is saying. And in your anger, do not sin is better understood as one, yes, don't give up, but also don't concede. Don't give up. Do not hear, do not repeat stories, do not accept, right, anything that has to do with loss or the idea of loss, because that's what sin is. You giving up on yourself, because all of the desires you have are within you, right? And so you have to give up that story, which has an identity to it, which means you have to stop playing the role of that person. So, and I know this is usually a shorter one, but like basically what you want to do is, this is actually an encouragement to get you to script, right? And so scripting is very powerful because there's actually neuroscience research that shows that when you script, you're like, as in writing a story down from the first person, right? That your brain cannot tell the difference between what you're scripting and whether you're living it now. Okay, so in one sense, even you writing it down with pen and paper, right? And yes, I usually encourage even my clients to do pen and paper, because their research shows that there's something that happens to the brain that says, oh, you're doing pen to paper. This feels real. This actually feels like this is true, right? It feels more real. Now, if you use the app or whatever, then just do it with emotion, right? Deep conviction. But, use scripting as a way to write a new story, right? If you can do it 3 times a day, that's the best. If you can do it once a day, great, right? But again, the whole point isn't just writing, it's to feel the story real, right? You are that person. You are the first person, not only writing the story, but living the story that you're writing now. And what would that be like? Where would you be? Dream impossible things, because there's no such thing as impossible, right? And I really believe that wholeheartedly. This isn't just something that I'm saying because I'm a coach, and I actually truly believe this. And so what that means is you have to be willing to test all this out. You have to be willing to experiment. And so whereas most people might say, well, you experimented and failed. No, you experimented and learned. You experiment because you are in a process called an experiment, right? And so part of that process is learning, like Neville says. One of my favorite lectures he talks about in picture making is this idea of the spiral violin. I'm sorry, that's my article I wrote on Reddit. So is violin, is the idea of playing the violin, and how it takes time and how it's a process, and playing any instrument for that matter. And so you have to see the imagination as an instrument. Okay, it is not something that you just go dip in and out of when you want something. And remember, you don't go into have. You never go into have. You never go into have. Let me say this again, because this is one of the things I see people always, I'm going in to get. No, you're not. You never, ever go in to get. You never, ever go in to have. You go in to be who has, right? To be the person who already has the thing that you want, okay? And being means that there's a way of acting. There's a way of seeing. There's a way of interpreting. There's a way of breathing. There's a way of interacting. There's a way of having relationships. There's a way of seeing things, right? And that's what it means to go into be. What does it mean to be the person who has the house already? And that's a magic word, by the way. Here's another one, because people get caught up on time. Check this out. In the imagination, the greatest word that you'll ever encounter that will help you understand this, what's going on in the imagination, is the word already. Not already as in, I'm already, are you all ready? No. Already, as in, I already have my house. I already have my car. I already have the money. I already have confidence. I already have the wife or husband or significant other. Whatever it is, it's already there. It's done. It's finished. You have it, right? And you go in to feel that as a way in which to connect with the alreadiness of being the thing, the person who has the thing, right? Are you with me so far? So again, and I've used this technique before, but I'll close with this. And this is actually using the circle of excellence to get you what you want. Okay. So again, if you're new to this, just get in touch. I do coaching. I offer coaching packages. We have Bible study that looks at the Bible, not from a, historical perspective. I have group coach calling, everything. Like, I mean, it's pretty awesome. So check that out. But what I want to do is I want to give you this technique. And if you followed me, or if you're in the free Discord, which you can also join by clicking a link on my bio or emailing me about packages, go for it. But here's the technique. It's called the Circle of Excellence, okay? And it's a very simple technique, but it's a very powerful technique because it's using your emotions, okay? And your feelings of conviction, because emotions are never enough. Emotions don't manifest. It's the emotions that lead to conviction, which means, hey, dude, I'm it. I am it, right? I'm that thing. I'm the person, okay? So what you do is you imagine a circle. Now, there's a rim around that circle. Choose a color. Choose any color that you want, okay? So that color could be blue or yellow, like I love yellow, or gold, or whatever it is, and that color is going to actually light up. So what you're going to do is you're going to see yourself from the first person. You're going to actually start building this circle out, make it decorative. You can use different lines, make it a square. It doesn't have to be a circle. But what you want to do is you want to imagine it's something that you can walk into. Okay. And then what I want you to do is I want you to choose 3 to 5 different emotions or convictions or ideas that you want to be true of yourself, right? And usually things that you may have already given up on because you think it's a failure, right? Go back, throw those emotions and feelings and convictions into the middle of this circle and watch them disappear into the circle. It's like quicksand, but you're going to actually go in. Don't think of it like quicksand immediately, but it's like a time portal, right? It's just you throw in, you don't see it, but it is a deep well. And so what you're doing is you're throwing them in, you're throwing them in, you're throwing them in. Then a knob appears on the lower right hand of your screen from the first person perspective. And what you do is that is to turn up your emotion. You amplify it, amplify it, amplify it. And then there's a color button. I mean a color knob, and you're going to turn up the color, intensify it. If it's gold, whatever color you chose, do that. Now, what I want you to do is, as you've done that, throw in all those things. So throw in confidence, throw in power, throw in fame, throw in house, throw in whatever it is that you want. Okay. And then once you do that, turn up the colors again and again and again, right? And when you feel like it's too much, turn it so bright, it almost feels like you can't see anything, right? And same with emotion. Once you feel it like you're at 10, do it again, another 10, right? And ramp it up. Okay, then all of that, when you see the bright circle, turn it down so it's regular, all this kind of stuff. Keep the emotion heightened, go in, right? And then once you feel it, imagine all those things that you just threw in there came up, not around you, through you, like through your feet, through your body. Feel it all, whether it's confidence, it'd be a house, whatever it is. Imagine those things are coming through you right now. Okay, and then heighten the color, heighten the emotion, and do that again. Right now, once you feel the height of that emotion, and you feel like, damn, this is not only is this heightened, but I feel like this is real. Because here's the thing: heightened emotion is great. Right? Heightened emotion is not just great, but the heightened emotion is always meant to lead to conviction, self-conviction, which means I am that, okay? So once you do that, I want you to then anchor, okay? So this is all from NLP. So anchoring, and again, you don't have to choose my physical one. This is what I do. But you pinch your first finger and your thumb together right when you feel the conviction of I am it. I have this thing. I am, right? Whatever it is, you do that. And you actually impress it upon your body, right? And then you actually create a memory of you already having these things, okay? So again, you do that as many times as you can. Usually it'll embed within you, right? Within 7 to 14 days. And why do you do this? Because let's say you have doubts. Well, then you can press those 2 fingers together, or you can bang your chest like Matthew McConaughey does before he goes on set, right? Whatever it is, or you can actually tie that to an image, the emotion to an image, like maybe it's walking into the house or whatever it is. You don't have to tie it to a physical thing. You could tie it to a song. Every time you hear that song, boom, it heightens your emotion, right? And so again, you can do anything for that, but you choose it to heighten your emotion. You choose it to heighten what you desire, okay, to the point of conviction. And do this, honestly, if you could work up to 3 times a day, that'd be awesome. Because really, this doesn't take any more than like 5 to 7 minutes, right? And so if you can plan for that, then plan for that. Okay, plan and then work up to 3 times a day. Okay, and you will, I'm telling you, it will change you. Okay, this is what I do with my clients in my coaching program. There's way more. There's like hundreds of NLP techniques. We haven't even touched the surface with any of these videos yet. If you watch my other lives. And so I do plan to get back into lives again. Right. And so actually, no, Albin, this is very different from the law of attraction. It's not that I'm not a fan of it. I'm just not a big endorser of it. This is about you being, right? You embodying what you desire now, right? So in science and psychology, they call it the future self. Okay. So it's actually referred to as the law of assumption. And yes, it is different because it sounds like I'm saying only one different word, but it's actually very, very different because in law of attraction, everything magnetizes towards you and you have to be in, like, to me, what I call toxic positivity, like a heightened mood of emotions all the time, right? And this is not about that. You do not. You can feel all the emotions that you want, right? But you do have to deal with limiting beliefs. You have to deal with those, and you have to deal. That's why I'm a coach, because I help people, and I'm backed by Harvard training and all of this kind of stuff, right? And because I care about what I do, and I care about people's health journey, and I care about people's goals, and I want to help people get and manifest what they want, right? So hope this was helpful. And again, back to Albin, NLP is actually backed by science. It's not backed by the law of attraction. So yeah, so again, if you're looking for coaching, get in touch. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. Like I said, I do hope to do more of this back into a regular schedule again. And if you are looking for any issues, not issues, but like concerns that you have, leave your ideas down below and I'll make sure I do one. I try to do these videos pretty quickly. Like if you say, hey, I want you to talk about this, well, then I'll try to do it within a week, right? So, and I usually do it as a live now because a lot of people, okay, actually are actually getting into it. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody, and please have a great day. And yeah, leave your ideas below. Join the Discord; it's free. Ask me about coaching packages, and yeah, be safe in the world. All right, see you guys soon.